Thank you guys, you ladies and gentlemen. All right, as stated, my name is Alicia Curtin. I am a firearms instructor here in San Diego County. I do a myriad of things. I do teach private instruction as well as group courses, as well as also teaching the CCW stuff. So I, kind of had some experience here in the firearms world, and I also happen to be a concealed carry permit holder. And I've been carrying since the permits were able to be issued in recent history since 2017. So let's kind of go ahead and roll right into it. If you want to kind of go on the professional side, as far as my complete, complete list of things that I do, I am a competitive shooter in my free time. Myriad of certs under the USCCA as well as the NRA, right? All of these things that, in the gun world are pretty impressive, right? Or it can be, right? That's what we look for when we look for someone who's an instructor. But what I feel like is even more important and more applicable today is, yes, I have all of these things. I teach things in the firearms world. I work with firearms. I shoot on a regular basis, and I carry a firearm on a regular basis. So what's even more important than this, and I would hope that this would be even more important to you, I'm more than this, I'm a wife, right? It's my husband up here in the front row, right? Not only that, but I am a mom. Those are my 4 hooligans there, right? So, and apart from that, I'm also a friend. And so I'm sure if you were to think about yourselves, what are the things, how would you label yourself? If someone were to ask you to tell a little bit about you, what are the things in your life that are important to you? Sometimes it might be the professional stuff, right? But also too, where is your identity? What is most important to you? Because if you think about it, who you are and what you do is going to be a big part of your why, right? You're all here to learn all about things about that are CCW, concealed carry related, right? If I were to ask each of you, what is your why? Okay, that is the reason that we are carrying. So I want you to kind of be thinking about that for just a little bit. Okay, we're going to talk about the why. Not only that, but we're going to talk about some carry options. How do you pick the right carry firearm for you? Knowing that we live here in California, we are bound to what's called a roster. So what maybe are some options that you could consider? So we'll talk about how to maybe pick the right firearm for you. Not only that, but how are you going to carry it? On-body carry is an option. It's not your only option. Are you going to choose to off-body carry? How are ways that we can do that well and do that legally? All right. Also, too, we're going to talk about training and practice. Very important. If you decide to conceal carry, you're going to be carrying a firearm out in a public place. The public at large is there. If you ever have to pull this in self-defense, be mindful. What's your backdrop? On a range, we have a berm, right? Out there in the world, we don't. Okay, so we're going to talk about that as well. And then also, too, we're going to talk about the whole concept of who knows that you carry. Who do you share that with? Who do you not? And maybe why we do or do not. Okay, and we're going to talk about all of these things from a female perspective. Okay, females, first of all, when we talk about our why, we're all going to have different whys. Some of us might be moms. Some of us might be wives. But maybe we're not. Maybe you're a caretaker. Maybe you're living the fun party independent life. Right? Maybe you're older and you are taking care of little ones or little grandchildren, or maybe you don't. All right? We're all going to be different, and we all have a different place in life, and we all have a different reason as to why we carry. So if you don't mind, is there anybody that would be willing to share just a brief moment as to what your why is? Maybe you've had some trauma. Maybe you haven't, but you want to prevent that. Maybe we have people that we are responsible for that we feel like we need to protect. Right? And what better way to do that than to have a powerful tool, such as a firearm, to be able to stop something that might be trying to hurt us? Is anybody willing to share?
I'm a wife and a mother and a grandmother.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry, but I also drive back and forth to LA for work frequently, and so that drive sometimes can be a little harrowing.
Absolutely.
So that's why.
Absolutely. Wonderful. Absolutely. See, it's not just about us. It can be about others or about circumstances, right? I don't do it as often as I would like to, but I do like to get out there and to hike and to do some things out in the outdoors. Sometimes my most recent hike, we left at 3 a.m. in the morning up on a trail, right? There's not normally another little soul out there, but if there are other people out there, sometimes we might surprise them. Maybe they're not expecting us. You never know what you're going to find out there, all right? So something like that, you're out on the road. You never know what circumstances you're going to come across. Absolutely. Anybody else that have anything that they'd like to share? And it can be a private thing. I respect people that have no desire to share. Fantastic. So keep in mind, what is your why? Sometimes our why plays a role as to the other decisions that we make as far as how we carry. Okay. So let's talk firstly, though, about maybe acquiring a firearm. What type of firearm might be best to suit our needs? Now, if you think about it, there are some features about a firearm that might make it better for one purpose over another, right? I will tell you that as an instructor, when people, women, men, and when persons come to me looking for advice or help and guidance in choosing a firearm, you know, the one question is, well, what's the best gun to buy? You know, my answer is often, which one do you like? Okay, because what works for me may not be what works for you. But what we can do is we can discuss concepts that tend to make certain guns maybe a particularly better fit for a certain circumstance over another firearm. And from there, that might lead you in a path that gives you an idea of what you should try. Okay, but that doesn't mean that it's going to be a hard list of for sure this is what you should have. But it's a list, it's a guide. So as far as features go, I will tell you a heavier firearm is going to give you a lot less recoil. If you've never explored and shot a myriad of firearms, you may not know that. A heavier, especially a steel, a lot bigger, a lot heavier, a lot softer of a shooting experience. That barrel length is longer. It's a little bit easier to be accurate. But does that make it a good fit to carry? I mean, you know, you might need to wear suspenders, right? So it may not be a good fit for carry. All right, so when we go lighter, that's going to be a lot more carry friendly. It's going to be able to sit whether we are carrying it on our belt or maybe in our bag, less weight on the shoulder, less weight on the pants weighing them down, right? But you might find that when you practice and you shoot and you train, it's going to have a little bit more spice to it, which might make it not all that friendly to shoot, but it's something to take into consideration. If you think about it this way, this is how I think about it. Yes, heavier and larger is more comfortable to shoot. How often am I shooting? Lighter and smaller, easier to conceal. I'm concealing every day. So I personally, and this is what's right for me, I choose to be comfortable on a daily basis, and I choose a gun that I shoot well enough even if I don't love it, because it's a little bit spicy, okay? But that may not be the right fit for you. The key is going to be understanding your options and understand the circumstances, and you pick what's right for you. When we deal with a longer barrel or a larger grip, it's a whole lot easier to hold on to. Greater accuracy again with that longer barrel. But that grip, I will tell you, on a concealed firearm, the grip is one of the hardest parts to conceal. That grip tends to poke and stick out when you carry it on your body. So the bigger that grip, the harder and more challenging it becomes to conceal on your person. I will show you some options and some ways to make that a little bit easier, but it still may be a difficult thing to navigate. If we go with that shorter barrel, shorter grip, easier to conceal. All right, sights are a little closer together. We don't have as precise with accuracy when we shoot. So if you ever notice a smaller gun, we have a harder time being accurate with a smaller gun. Part of that's going to be that your sights are closer together. That's part. Also, too, smaller is going to be a little bit more spicy. That tends to make us uncomfortable, which makes us maybe have some bad habits because we get a little bit anxious. All right, hammer fire versus striker. That's a deeper discussion. Hammer fire, if you don't know, is going to it requires you to utilize either a decocker or a safety. The trigger on a hammer-fired firearm is a lot easier to deploy. A lot of people like hammer fire because they find they're a little bit accurate with it because they don't have to have such a difficult pull on that trigger. But what you need to be mindful of, if you are choosing to conceal carry a hammer-fired firearm, you need to also then practice not just that light, easy trigger, but practice decocking. And if you decock your hammer-fired firearm, you have a long, hard, heavy trigger pull. All right? If you have a hammer fired with a safety, you have to practice removing the safety before you take that shot. So the concept of and use of a hammer fire is a lot easier in a lot of ways, but it has some considerations that are the reality that we need to practice. So you need to put some time and practice into that. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, I would love to spend some time with you, maybe at a different time, kind of going over some of these things if you're not familiar with hammer versus striker. But it's something that you need to be mindful of. To carry a hammer fire, you utilize your safety or your decocker, and you have to. All right? So let's talk about equipment beyond our firearm. So some things we need to consider is what is the function of particular equipment when we're going to be carrying? What does it need to have to meet our needs? And do we really truly need it? All right, we're women, we like a deal. We like things that are nice and new and shiny, right? We get an ad or for something that's on sale. Sometimes we're tempted because it looks like a good deal, but do you really need it? Okay, so to consider what do you need and what meets your needs. Not only that, but everything that's out there on the market, I guarantee you there's going to be a lot of products that are going to be marketed to you. You know, your phone is listening to you here today, right? Next thing you know, you're going to probably be starting in social media ads for different things that are firearms related. Just because it looks good doesn't mean that it's a good fit, doesn't mean that the quality and the reliability are going to be there, right? So take some things into consideration. Is it going to be safe to use and operate? Okay. Some holsters look pretty, but I will tell you there's a certain feature on a holster that you need to have, and they don't all meet that standard. So we have to talk about some things. Not only that, but there's a legality concern that we have with some products. For example, there's a product that's marketed. Okay, it's a magnet that you can mount on the footwell area of your vehicle. It's a magnet where you can place your firearm. These things are marketed and they're out there. Not such a great idea, right? At least not in California, because when you conceal carry, you have a concealed carry permit. I'm not going to ask for a show of hands on who does and who doesn't have one, but know that when you have a permit, it's a concealed carry permit, right? That means your firearm must be concealed at all times. Certain products, for example, these car draw holsters or magnets, depending on how you use them, if your firearm shows, if someone were to walk by your vehicle and see it mounted in that magnet, you're not properly concealed. So just be careful. Be careful. Just because a product is marketed and sounds good, and it looks really good in the ad and it functions really well, doesn't mean that it's necessarily a good idea, especially here in California where our laws tend to be a little bit more strict, right? So let's talk about some of these things. Holsters. What's really important is I brought a couple of different holsters here. Some are decent, some are not, and I brought some really bad examples for a reason to kind of show you some things that both in the positive as well as the negative. So what's really important is a holster must have certain features for it to be considered a good holster. One is that it must have good, complete trigger guard coverage. All right, so I brought some dummy guns here. All right, so nice, pretty orange gun. And so trigger is here, and this is the trigger guard. Okay, so when we insert our firearm into our holster, what we need to make sure is that we have good, complete trigger guard coverage. Now, Kydex is an option, but Kydex is not your only option. I personally would like to encourage you to consider Kydex, which is a hard plastic, your best option. It may not be all that comfortable to wear, okay, but here's why. Kydex, if you have a dog at home that likes to jump up and is excited to see you when you get home, Kydex is not going to have any give with that little paw as they jump up on you, right? A kid comes to give you a hug, right? As they kind of hug, there's nothing that they can work in there to actuate that trigger. So be careful. Kydex gives you a really good hard trigger coverage as far as material, but make sure that the space completely covers your trigger, that there's nothing that can weasel their way in there, all right? So other materials that you might potentially see marketed to you. Okay, something like this. This is going to be a little bit softer on the body. Okay, this is some type of rigid fabric. They do have a panel in here that makes it somewhat stiff, but be careful. These fabrics are not going to be nearly as safe on that trigger guard, not going to give you nearly as good of a firm, hard coverage. So when we insert this holster, or this firearm, into this other holster here, let it go, right? Doesn't like it. It wants the red gun that I left at home. All right. So this is not made for this firearm. I apologize. I had a different dummy gun that I forgot and left at home that fits in this one. But even when this one fully goes in, okay, what's going to happen is, yes, the trigger guard's covered. However, this fabric is soft and pliable. You lean against something firm that potentially could press in just the most imperfectly right spot, we've got a problem. All right. So all it takes is a simple depression and actuation of your trigger for that round to fire. Something like this does not give you good security. Okay, so be mindful. It's going to feel better on the body, but it's not going to be safe. So just be mindful of your equipment. As far as locations, we have some options too, especially women. If you think about it, places that men can conceal a firearm, their waist, okay, both front, side, and back, okay. Ankle if they choose to. It's not really a popular carry position, but it's an option. All right. Some men will choose to carry what's called a shoulder rig, which is going to be a belt system that kind of anchors and holds their firearm kind of under the armpit area. Okay. Women, we have all those options, plus an additional one. We actually can utilize some assets here to help us to conceal and carry a firearm should we choose that too. So holster options as far as additional pieces, we have something like this. This is a Kydex holster, hard Kydex. It does have good complete trigger guard coverage. I do have a firearm in here currently. It is empty and clear, and it does have what's called a barrel block in here that indicates it's empty and clear. So that's what that is about. So what this is this is a holster that actually hooks to the center point of your bra. tuck it up under the girls just a bit, okay? Good hard coverage, and we don't have to worry about anything being around the waist or bending or shifting or moving. It's an option, okay? Not only that, but there are systems that are called like a rig, okay? And it's called, there's one particularly that's popular, it's called the Filster Enigma. Anybody ever heard of the Filster? Rich, do you have one, Rich? No. What's that?
Raves about it.
Yeah. So I have one on me right now. Okay, I am wearing leggings. Now, do you think that you could carry with leggings? So here's the thing. I don't even have a belt on. I have no belt on my leggings. I have nothing on, okay? What it is this holster is on a rig. It is on a belt system that's attached to me, not to my clothing. Again, we have options. Now, this is not women specific, but they do market heavier to women. They don't really advertise or market this to men. So I do have a dummy gun in here presently. I'll show this to you. So here is my Filster. So what it is, it's a belt rig you attach your holster to, and then you place your firearm. And what's nice about this option is this can be placed anywhere on your abdomen. You can put it as low as over the pubic bone. You can put it as high as under the armpits if you want to, and anywhere in between, because it's attached to you. It's not attached to your clothing. So if you're wearing skirts, dresses, leggings, shorts, whatever it may be, maybe you don't want anything on your waistline, maybe you don't feel like your pants are sturdy enough to handle the weight, you don't want to wear a belt, whatever your reasoning is, it's an option. Okay, it's a rig. It's called a Filster Enigma. If you are interested in it, it is not a holster. What it is it's a belt system with a triangular plate that you bolt your existing holster to. Okay, so it's a piece of equipment. It's not a holster. Okay, I will take it off and show it to you. If you'd like to try it on and wear it and look at it, you're welcome to explore it. I will do that towards the end. But you have a plethora of options. We've got the bra holsters, right? It's called the flashbang. If this is something of interest to you, the flashbang. I don't represent or I'm not affiliated with any company in particular. I just like to show products that are an option. Okay, so this is called the flashbang. The Filster Enigma is the belt rig that I'm currently wearing. All right, we have options. There are also other products. This is not my favorite, but it's an option. There are these shirts that you can purchase. If you take a look in the armpit area on either side is a holster. You can wear this on your body and have the firearm right kind of almost up in the armpit, not quite up in the armpit, but enough that it's there. Your arm does kind of cover it and conceal it. Now the downside to this is this fabric is purposely stiff because it needs to give enough firmness for this not to flop down. So I don't particularly find this comfortable, but it is an option. They do make them in tanks and other versions, but it's an option, right? So I'll consider your options. Now the downside to this one, and this is something I can demo here, is if you think about it, not only does the product have good trigger guard coverage, not only does it feel comfortable enough for me to wear, but practice with it. What's the reality of what does the draw look like? How hard is it for me to get it out of here? How easy is it for me to get it out of here? I don't have good trigger guard coverage, by the way. I don't know how you feel about that. I don't like that, okay? If I were to be wearing this and I needed to draw and to get to it, I would need to remove this and then come up and draw. And it would all be done right about here. So yes, it works well for concealment. I don't love the safety aspect of it. I don't feel that that's completely safe. So I don't love that. Also the reality of how hard and quick am I able to get that firearm out. If you look at the real life scenario of self-defense, a gunfight tends to be over within 3 to 5 seconds. If that, how long is it going to take me to be able to get that out of there? Things to take into consideration. Things to take into consideration. Are you going to carry any extra gear? Especially for moms, we tend to already carry so much. Or even if we're not a mom, you look in your purses, how much stuff do you already have in there? Do we need to add more stuff to it? But do you maybe want to consider other things that you potentially might choose to carry? Maybe you choose to have a flashlight. Okay, a flashlight can be a tool that we can use to help us in dark spaces to see and have some situational awareness. What's going on over there? Do I maybe want to go that way or not? If it's a really great bright flashlight, it can be a bit of a blinding tool that can kind of buy you some time. Okay, but do you want to take the time in your gear to carry one? Do you have room in your pocket? Do you want to consider carrying a first aid kit? If I get hurt, if I carry a firearm just in case, maybe I need to have a first aid kit just in case, or a trauma kit just in case. So I have a option or a small, well, really this one could be about half the size and it would still hold everything that's in here. I do have a tourniquet, I have a chest seal, and I have a clotting medium in here. This is for trauma. This is not a boo-boo kit of Band-Aids, but I do throw Band-Aids in there too. But you can consider carrying something like this. If you carry this just in case, I'd like to encourage you to carry trauma medical just in case. And this is primarily for you if something happens and you're hurt, right? So can somebody consider your medical stuff? All right. Belly bands are also a popular product that are marketed to women. How do you guys feel about belly bands? Does anybody have an opinion of a belly band?
I love them.
You love them?
Yeah.
Do you have, so what, do you have a particular style or one that you like?
Actually, I like the thicker bands on the belly band, not such a thin one.
So like the 4 to 6 inch ones? So I brought some examples. So these are called belly bands, right? Soft, right? Really nice against the skin. They are popular with women, right? In particular. Just be careful, the same things, the cautions. Now, some of the belly bands are actually not bad. Now, the existing material tends to be sometimes glorified elastic. Not great trigger guard coverage, but sometimes they can be big enough for us to place a shell of a Kydex holster into that compartment if you get one that has that. But again, sometimes what we deal with is that same mechanism of how do we get it out? How fast are we with that draw? Practice, time yourself. How long does it take you to draw and to get that out? So what makes things convenient and comfortable for us sometimes works against us on the reality of the draw. But if you practice and you train, odds are you can get really good and really efficient and really fast at it. But it's something to take into consideration. Belly bands can be comfortable, but I would encourage you still to have the importance of good trigger guard coverage and consider placing a Kydex shell in there with your firearm so that you've got that trigger guard coverage, right? If you choose to carry off body, right? Purses, bags, fanny pack, right? That's an option. You can conceal carry. You can carry however you want to. It can be on your body, on your person, or it can be in a bag. But what's really important is that if you choose to carry in a bag, make sure that when you open up that zipper to get your wallet out or to get your gum, right, that your firearm doesn't show. Make sure that grip doesn't flip out and show. If so, you're not properly concealed. So it needs to be concealed, preferably in a separate compartment. That way it's not going to have any other materials kind of finding their way into the trigger guard. And that way too, you only go into that compartment when you need it. All right, and not only that, but if you need to use the restroom, please don't leave your bag with anybody else. That is under your control and your control only. So something to consider is if we choose to carry off body, we are burdened with that bag. We cannot allow anyone else to hold it, to hang on to it, to carry it, to wear it, to babysit it for us for a moment. I'll be right back. We can't do that. Okay, it is yours and your responsibility alone. Have you ever left your purse somewhere by mistake and forgotten it?
I have a friend that left his
Firearm?
Firearm
In a bathroom?
The church.
Oh gosh.
Bathroom.
Yeah.
But not only the church bathroom, but in the children's ministry bathroom.
Yeah.
Pastor found it, thankfully.
Thankfully. Yeah. So restrooms, bathroom times, especially for women. Men, it's a little bit easier. They don't have to always undo as many things, right? Women, I will tell you, if you are carrying on your person, for example, on your clothing, right? When we do what we got to do, what's going to flop out and show, make sure that your holster is going to be of a quality holster that's going to hold and retain that firearm. Or if you choose to take it off, sometimes I do take mine off because that's easier and safer. Don't forget to reacquire it though, right? And if you choose to carry it in a bag, really I would like to encourage you to consider if you're going to bag carry, like off body, please have it be in a type of bag that's to you, crossbody or attached and belted to you. For example, a fanny pack or maybe a crossbody purse that you don't take off. Okay, I would not encourage you to carry in a purse, for example, that when you get to the restaurant to have lunch, that you hang that purse on your chair. I'll tell you, purses are already targets. People already want them. They want money and whatever else might be in there. And we don't want to give them our defensive tool as well. So I won't say that you can't. I'm just saying be careful and make good choices and understand the options. And the reality of it needs to be on you. All right, some carry option locations for on your body. Some of these I like, some of them I don't. But just because I don't like them doesn't mean that it's not right for you. So I'm going to give you a little bit of everything here. So appendix, we call appendix when we carry in the front half of our abdomen, basically from hip to hip on the front. That's called appendix, okay? So there's, for me personally, I carry just to the right of the belly button normally when I carry appendix on my pants. So kind of like the 1 o'clock position here, right? So we can also choose to carry strong side, okay? So in that case, it's going to be over here, strong side. An option is going to be that bra holster, the flashbang, right? So in which case you would just lift that shirt and pull that firearm down, right? If anything, that shirt lift is a distraction. Maybe it buys you more time, right? So you can choose to cross body draw, in which case that would be putting a firearm more over on this hip and I would be reaching across to get it, all right? The small of the back is an option. I would like to caution you to be careful about that though, but carrying small of the back would be that your holster is right here. Now it's going to be a little bit more comfortable in a lot of ways to carry small to back, but guess what's not so good about it? First of all, I can't see it. If I am flashing or showing, if my shirt is shifted or lifted, I don't know. Okay, not only that, but you know, we don't stand upright all day long. Bend over. Have someone take a picture of you bending over with your firearm holstered in the back. It's going to show, right? When you bend over, it's going to pop up and be like, here I am. So it's an option if you choose to want that. Understand the reality of how it operates though. Just be careful. Make informed choices is what it's about. Ankle carry is also another option, okay? Off-body options, we discussed these. Inside bags or purses, I would recommend crossbody style or clipped to you, or something like a fanny pack again, okay? Just for the security of making sure that we don't set it down inadvertently. All right, here's some just pictures of some options and carry places. This is the small of the back, right? This is the bra holster, that flashbang that's tucked, you know, it's clipped to the center point of the bra and it's kind of, you just kind of lift a little bit of everything, kind of shove it under there. I will tell you the thicker the firearm, I have a Glock 26 here. That is a double stack. It's a thicker, it's small by way of you know, height and length, but it's kind of thick on the width. So it sometimes is not the greatest for a bra carry firearm is what I learned after I decided to try to carry it that way, because that creates some gappage to where sometimes some of us that have had babies and things like to slip out. So thinner firearms are going to be much better for this option. Okay, this is the filter, this is the rig. This is what I'm currently wearing right now. So that's what it looks like outside of the body. All right, so that's it. Now it does come with a leg leash. I choose not to utilize the leg leash. That's what this is here. The leg leash just simply helps to kind of keep everything stationary when you draw. It helps it not to flip or to lift as much with the draw. This is a close-up of the clip attachment of how we put the Filster Enigma off and on. Just some belly band options. Some of them can look pretty, right? There we go. This is appendix. That's what this is how I normally would carry, would be appendix. Now, what's nice about the Filster in particular is, again, I can set the height. If you carry appendix attached to your clothing, sometimes that can be kind of an uncomfortable place, but having an option to put it on you, not the pants, and do different heights makes sitting a little bit more comfortable. Another option to consider, this is actually, I like this more than the Filster personally, but that's just me. If you were to look up and research, what is the best belt for concealed carry? Something like that, right? The answer that you're likely going to find is something thick and rigid and stiff and not all that comfortable. And let's be real, ladies, we tend to not want to add a whole lot of girth to our waist, right? They tend to be thick and the buckles and things, right? So this is something that I personally prefer, but it breaks all the rules, okay? This is not stiff. It's not rigid. The reason for the stiff and rigid is it helps to retain that holster so the holster doesn't come off with the gun. That's the whole point of the stiff, rigid holster, right? As a woman, I don't want a stiff, rigid belt most of the time. Okay, if I'm working on the range, I don't mind wearing the stiff, rigid belt, but if I want to be a girl that day, right, I may not want to. So this is what I generally utilize most often, and this does not go on the clothing. This goes on me. So this is the same concept as the Filster Enigma, but it's just a belt instead of a true rig that holds my holster. So what you do is you put this on you, not your clothing. And because it has this kind of this sticky neoprene-like, you know, it's like a wetsuit material under here, and then it's kind of this rubberized texture here. This here is what makes the holster difficult to get it off even when you want it off. It's not going to come off with your draw. Okay? And what it does have here is it has a little bit of elasticity right here, just enough so that when I sit, you know, when we sit, things are a little bit more snug than they were when we were standing, has just enough give to where it's not uncomfortable for me to wear. But it's stiff, or it holds stiffly enough to hold that firearm in place. Okay, I do have these, so here towards the end, I will let you come up and look if you want to experiment and try, put things on, you're welcome to do that. You're welcome to try those. But what it is that this material here, your holster, when you go to draw, okay, is not going to come off, even if I wanted it to come off when I draw that firearm out. It's not going to, okay? So this stuff really helps to, this is why it's okay to break the rules with stiff, thick, rigid, because we have this that makes up for what we get out of the stiff and thick. So that's an option. Alrighty, I would like to encourage you to practice training. I know during COVID, ammo prices went sky high. Right? I don't know if you noticed that. I'm not sure how often you ladies shoot, but for those of you that do shoot, ammo prices went ridiculously high. Some of the calibers have kind of crept back down. Some of them have, but not all. But even still, it still can be expensive to do a whole lot of practice. So I'd like to encourage you to consider other options to train. Okay, if you want to work, first of all, if you want to work with an instructor, absolutely, I would highly recommend it. And it doesn't even have to be me. I'm not putting it out there because I want you to work with me. Now, if you'd like to, I'd love to work with you, but it doesn't have to be me. I would like to encourage you as often as you're able, get out there, work with an instructor. I still pay instructors to work with me on a, as often as a regular basis as I'm able to get out there and do it. Tear me apart, to build me back up and help me to do it well. All right. So when we train, sometimes our fundamentals start to slip. So as often as you're able, I would recommend a trainer. But if you can't do that, you don't have the time or the funds, there are other ways that you can train and work yourself to do things and to do them well. If you have, anybody ever dry fired before? Awesome. Anybody do it on a regular basis? How regular, do you mind if I ask? How often do you think? Weekly? Mark? Weekly? Okay. So here's the thing about dry fire, and far too many people discount it as not being helpful because, hey, it doesn't have recoil. You're right, it doesn't. But the purpose of dry fire, first of all, it's free. You already own your firearm. If you own your firearm, it's free. Dry fire is free. The value in dry fire is it allows us to practice our fundamentals and all the things leading up to the point of recoil. All that recoil does is hide our bad habits. It's us doing unnecessary movement with our firearm that kind of makes our shots go askew on that target for the most part. So it allows us to practice that trigger press, and that's going to be critical and key. And we can do this practice for free. All you need is your own existing firearm. All right. So for those of you that own firearms, I imagined, how many of you have a magazine disconnect in your firearm? No? Some? Disconnect. A magazine disconnect? Do you know what that is? Allow me to share with you. Well, this is California, so here's what this is. A magazine disconnect is a feature that is going to be on some California rostered firearms. Things on the roster older were grandfathered in before it was a requirement. So not all of them have it, okay? So allow me to show you first. Okay, I have my Glock here. I'm presently empty mag. I do have the barrel block in there just to show you, verify empty and clear so that we're all safe, all right? So, magazine is here. I have no magazine in the firearm, but my trigger in a safe direction still works. That was the tripping of the trigger, okay? It works. What a magazine disconnect does is, so presently empty and clear on this firearm as well, okay? What a magazine disconnect does is it prevents my trigger from working unless I have a magazine in it. Now, a magazine, I'm going to actually use the empty one for demonstration purposes so that you see it has nothing to do with the presence of ammo or not. Okay, empty magazine, empty firearm. Once I insert that magazine in, trigger works now. So if you have a magazine disconnect, it can be a little bit more tricky to practice dry fire with something like this. Okay, does anybody have, if you have a shield, you have a magazine disconnect. Okay, unless you got it from someone out of state. Okay, so here's the thing. To practice dry fire, let's talk about the process of it, and then I will talk about how we circumvent some of the issues with a magazine disconnect. All right, so let's work first primarily with no magazine disconnect. So we get the concept there, okay? So as far as the magazine disconnect, disregard that for right now. The whole purpose of dry fire is that I want you to get your firearm, practice, it's an opportunity to practice your perfect grip. You're gonna present it, pick somewhere in your, first of all, verify empty and clear. Let's talk about that first, I apologize. 2 places ammo can be. One is in your magazine, in the magazine well. All right, if you're gonna be dry firing in your home to practice, you're gonna be pulling that trigger. We need to verify this before we do anything dry fire wise. So first of all, if 2 fingers go in your magazine well, no magazine's there, no ammo is gonna be there. Lock your slide to the rear. When it's locked to the rear, I now have a very good visual of that barrel. Presently, there is that orange guy because that's attached to this guy. Had a round have been stuck in there, I would see the back of that round with the primer and everything right in that space. That's where I'm checking. The fact that I have no round there and I have nothing in here, I know that I'm empty and clear. All right, close it up. So for dry fire practice, I verified an empty, clear firearm. I'm gonna complete my grip, point it somewhere in a safe, I'm still picking a safe direction. I'm following the rules of safety at all times. I'm gonna pick the safest direction possible, right? And I'm gonna point my firearm, and I'm gonna practice my perfect trigger press. When we practice our trigger press, what you need to be mindful of is that your trigger finger needs to be the only thing that moves. And again, this is practice we can do for free. Trigger finger is the only thing that moves. So when we trigger press, the gun should not move. I'm gonna look down my sights and I'm gonna trigger press. I'm gonna go ahead and prep my trigger first, and then I'm gonna press on through, and we want that firearm not to move. If you trigger press as part of your dry fire, you're looking at your sights. You're gonna know if they move. Line them up. If they move, for example, if what I see is something like that, that tells me that I engaged my lower three fingers on my dominant hand with the trigger press when I should not have. So when we do that, and again, this is what dry fire reveals. Recoil hides it. When you shoot real ammo and then the recoil happens, you don't even realize what you did. So when we trigger press, these guys stay steady, only the trigger finger moves, and the gun should be fairly steady and stiff. If we don't isolate that trigger finger to be the only thing that moves, and we instead engage these guys with the trigger press, we get something like that. If you're right-handed, if you are engaging these guys with that trigger press, your shots are gonna go low and left. So if you ever are consistently low and left, that's because instead of just this, you're doing this. Dry fire reveals it, okay? So dry fire allows you to see how well you isolate that trigger finger to be the only thing that moves, and allows you to practice in the comfort of your own home without the adrenaline response, the stress, the sound, the lead exposure, the expensive ammo. Allows you to practice that perfect trigger press so that when you do go live with ammo, it's quality shooting time and not money being blown down range because you can't hit the paper, okay? So prep your trigger. I'm gonna hold it a little bit differently so you can see your trigger will have a little bit of slack. Practice taking up that slack. Pause, now I'm on a wall of pressure. Steady drag through that wall, okay? Practice that. When we do that slow drag, we learn to isolate that finger so much better. And then when you feel like, you know what, I've got that, I've learned how to do it, I've got the dynamic of how to move only this finger and these guys don't join the party, then you can start going faster, okay? But we have to, there's value in going slow until the fingers learn how to behave. Now, if you are going to be dry firing with a firearm with a magazine disconnect, what you need to know is that after every trigger press, my disconnect, I have to put this guy in, trigger press. At this point, my trigger is now dead. If you're not aware, you're gonna have to cycle your slide to reset your trigger, okay? Does that make sense? Are you with me so far? Okay, if I have a firearm with a magazine disconnect, that means I'm practicing with a magazine in there. What happens when I rack my slide with an empty mag in there? Do you know?
Locks to the rear.
Locks to the rear. How frustrating is that? Now I gotta undo that. All right, so if you've got a magazine disconnect, this is the reality of what we're dealing with. There's two ways to kind of circumvent this, and I'm gonna show you what they both are, okay? So with a magazine disconnect, if you rack it back like we normally should, you're gonna get to this. Well, that's annoying, and now I gotta fix that. Okay, options. If you're gonna dry fire practice. Now, if you have a firearm with no magazine disconnect, all you do is leave your mag out, rack that slide, reset your trigger, and practice again. But if you have a magazine disconnect, we have to take this into account. Two options. One is that when you do your dry fire practice, I know that I need to operate my slide, and my normal way to rack my slide is aggressively to the rear. That's normal, and that's what I should be doing when I'm racking my slide. However, with the knowledge of this magazine disconnect, and when I understand my firearm, I know that I don't need to rack it all the way back to reset the trigger. You move it about 1/2 of an inch. It won't lock back, but that was just enough to reset my trigger. So you can dry fire practice with a gun with a magazine disconnect without having to get to this all the time if you have the discipline to only go like that, okay? That's free, all right? But if you feel like, you know what, I don't want to develop a bad habit of doing a gentle rack, I call it the baby rack. Maybe that's not your flavor. Maybe you don't want to do that. An option that you can consider is you can get a product like this. It's called a barrel block, okay? That's what that orange rod is that's sticking out of the Glock. This comes along with it. It's called a barrel block. So what that is it's a dummy round that has a rivet cut out of the top, so it never gets pushed out of the magazine. I'm going to insert this one for dry fire practice instead. So I can dry fire, right? And if I want to be able to keep and maintain my strong, aggressive racking habits without compromising that barrel block guy in there, what happens is he doesn't allow, he fools the gun into thinking that the magazine has ammo in it, so it doesn't lock back. Okay, so that's an option too. But again, these are about 20 bucks. That's not free. Your baby rack is free. You choose what works for you. But the idea is do it, practice it. You can do it for free. That training is going to be really beneficial and really helpful to you so that when you go live, you're not wasting ammo with your practice. Something else to consider, by the way, is a laser training system. If you want to invest in that money, they're amazing. There's lots of different ones to choose from. Mantis has a device that attaches to your firearm. If you have a Picatinny rail, it goes there. If not, there's a sticky adhesive that you can attach it to the bottom of your magazine. You do this at home. It's not free. It costs you some money. But what it does for Mantis in particular is it gives you feedback through the app on your phone. It's like an instructor right there with you. It tells you what you're doing. Are you slamming that trigger? Are you slapping? Are you healing? Which is where we kind of push and your shot goes high. It kind of diagnoses based on the movement of the gun what you are doing. So it allows you to kind of have some, like a little instructor in a box, right? There's other systems, for example, Strikeman's another popular one. That one has a laser fake round you put in your gun and you fire at a target, and there's an app for that too, all right? Options, you can train at home. If you are a caretaker, maybe you just don't, get out very often. Maybe you don't drive. Maybe you just, you like to stay home. Dry fire, laser systems, all of these things are great things you can do at home and still get training, quality training in, all right? Something else I'd like to discuss, and this is not something that's talked a whole lot about. If you choose to conceal carry, right, you go down and get your permit. It's a lengthy process. You're probably pretty proud of it. You probably want to shout from the rooftops, I got my approval, right? Here's my, you want to, but here's the thing, I'd like to caution you on letting the world know, all right? So this firearm is here for your own personal protection, right? That's what your concealed carry firearm is for. You decide who you're okay with knowing, okay? I'm very public with what I do. People know me, it's pretty much expected that I carry. I can't really be all that discreet with people that I know. People just know because they know what I do, all right? However, I would like to caution you on being as open and sharing your decisions with people at large, okay? I will tell you, I have a friend who no longer lives in San Diego County, but she did for a long time. And whenever we were out, she just didn't get it. She didn't get it. I'm gonna sit by Alicia because she carries a gun, right? So she was always making statements, right? And it needs to be a private thing, right? If you have, just keep in mind, if you have people that maybe are not so discreet, maybe they don't need to know. Okay, so just keep those things in mind, all right? First of all, it's my own personal protection. I never said I would use it on your behalf, okay? So if you've taken your CCW course, you learn about the legal liability of third-party defense, all right? There's a lot of liability there, all right? You ask anybody in the industry, are they willing to defend a third party? Most of them are gonna tell you absolutely not, okay? So there you go. So, and something else I wanted to kind of give a tip that I'd like to give you. When you conceal carry, the people that do know that are in your life and in your world, share with them a code word. Whether it's your kids, your spouse, maybe coworkers if you choose to let them know, whatever your circumstances are, have a code word. Because mom, your gun is showing in public is not necessarily a good idea for my kids to have to tell me if my conceal is not fully concealed as it should be. If something's going on and I don't notice, a code word allows the people in my life to share a circumstance with me that I know what it means, right? That means I need to go get myself somewhere discreet and safe and figure out what I have going on. So I would like to encourage you to consider a code word with your spouse, your kids, your family, your friends, your coworkers, whoever it may be, that you are okay with them knowing that you carry, and so therefore you've had this discussion. If you are imprinting is what we call it when the firearm not physically is shown, but the imprint is shown. So for example, if my shirt were very tight, this is called imprinting. Okay, you can see and tell that I have a firearm, but you don't physically see the firearm. That's imprinting. Okay, I will tell you, pattern clothing and layers are going to be your friend for concealment. But if things shift or move, right, maybe the shirt's a little bit tighter, the light's hitting it differently when I go outside, differently than it did when I looked in the mirror at home, right? I may be showing more than I feel or realize than I am, or more than I should be. Code words, for example, are a discreet way for the people in your life to let you know that you need to figure it out. Okay? So we should not be imprinting. We should not be showing as often as possible, right? We shouldn't. So I would just like to encourage you to kind of take some things into consideration. Who knows? And those who know, share this process of a code word. So should they need to caution you about something, they can do it discreetly. Does that make sense? All right. I would like to thank you for being here. We do have some time if you have questions. If you want to come up and look at gear, if you have questions of maybe something I didn't cover, maybe something you've been wondering or was hoping that I would talk about and it didn't dawn on me to discuss it, something like that, please do share. Right? So my resource, I'd like to be a resource to you, first of all, by the way. My phone number is up there. My cell is out there in the world. It's on all of my business cards. You are welcome to call, text, or email me. My email is up there as well. So feel free to reach out if you have any questions, if you'd like instruction, or you think of something later and like, hey, what about this product? I was considering this. What do you think about it? I may be aware of it, I may not be, but I would be happy to either try it out or do some research and get back to you and be a resource or help to you in any way. Yes?
Question.
Sure.
This is a very naive kind of question.
No, not at all. You don't know until you ask.
Don't guns have a safety on them?
No, not necessarily.
Not necessarily.
Some do, some don't. And even if they do, what's really important is that your safe handling is primary. Never rely on a safety. They can fail. They're a mechanical feature. So your proper handling primarily is the safety.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, they might have a safety, they might not. Just depends on the model. So, yeah. Thank you. Absolutely. Something, yes.
Thank you so much. I had a question. I was looking at a SIG P238.
Okay.
And someone that I was speaking to yesterday said that maybe that was too small.
Too small in what way?
That I might fumble trying to get it out of wherever, if it's on my body or in my purse. But I felt like I've shot a Glock 17.
Mm-hmm. Which is big. It's a 380. So when you said it was too small, I will tell you a lot of the people, if you were to ask their opinion, it's just like a belly button. Everybody's going to have an opinion. A 380 is what's called a 9 short. If you're not familiar with what that is, it's the diameter and the width of a 9, but it's more squat. The bullet portion is a little smaller, and the velocity that the round travels is less. So there are a whole faction of people out there that will say a 380 is not sufficient for self-defense. That's why I was asking, like, too small in what way? Too small of a round or too small of a gun? I would say work with it. And it was this, I'm curious, was it a man or a woman that told you that?
A man.
With big hands?
Yes.
Okay. What works for him is not necessarily the experience you're going to have. So that's the thing too, is us as women, our bodies are different. When considering where you're going to carry, how you're going to carry, different body types, different hands are going to fit guns differently. Different bodies you're going to conceal. I might be able to conceal here, whereas maybe you can't, or it doesn't hide well on you. Not only that, but your hands might be different to where you can get a good grip on it, whereas someone else may not be able to. So I would say the only way to know is to try it. And you said that you shot one?
Yeah.
Was it at a range, or did you borrow it with a friend, or did you rent? Yeah, so I'm curious if you know somebody who has one that would let you practice using a holster with one. If you don't, come see me at the range and I will let you holster and try it. I have access to one that you can use, but if you have another resource. But I would say that you're not going to know until you try it. I would say everybody's going to have an opinion on lots of things. It's something to take into consideration. Respect them. They're your friend. They're looking out for you, but don't cross it off your list because they didn't like it. So, but yeah, you're going to get that a lot, especially as women, right? Little women. Other people are going to want to help you out, and they're going to tell you yes or no about certain things. Consider it, but it doesn't mean that it's going to be your experience. So I will tell you the 2-3, a lot of people love them. I've worked with one. I've drawn with one. I don't know how big your hands are in relation to mine, but I had no issues drawing or getting it out and getting a good grip on it. So.
Yeah, I loved it. I felt like it was so much easier to shoot than Glock.
Yeah, because it's softer, because it has that lesser velocity. Yeah. It's just softer around. The recoil is much softer. Yeah. I would say try it before you decide. Yes, Mark.
I just wanted to address the safety issue. I have firearms with and without safeties, and you need to train to engage and disengage the safety when appropriate.
If you're going to use it.
And once the safety is disengaged, you really need to be paying attention to safe gun handling, because you can't, the safety is off. You can't rely on the safety. And if you're not used to disengaging the safety, that safety might be on when you want to use the firearm, so you need to train.
Yeah, the stress and the adrenaline in the moment, you might forget a step.
Once, I know a lot of people that have gotten CCWs, and as soon as they've gotten their CCW, they're like, I got my CCW, that was a great class. And they don't practice anything with their firearm until it's time to.
Well, it's going to be magic. You're going to figure it out in the moment that you need it. It'll be magical.
So, things to think about.
Please practice. It doesn't work that way. Did anybody see the video footage? There was a gentleman in LA. It was in November. It was really big in the news, right? He did have a permit in LA. There was a big hoopla that was made about it because his permit was pulled after the shoot. And the grip that he came out of his holster with, you need to train. If you plan to carry and you've never learned how to draw from a holster and you plan to carry from a holster, please get some training, please. I will tell you, holstering and drawing are one of the two most dangerous times to be handling your firearm. And if you've not trained, it's a whole lot of risk. Train. There's a proper way to do it very safely. But if you've not practiced and you've not learned and you just think you're going to magically figure it out in the moment that you need it, you're going to be at a great disadvantage and you're a lot of risk. Yes?
Speaking of drawing.
Yes.
Thank you. Speaking of drawing, most of the gun ranges around here just basically won't let you do that. They only want your weapon on their table and always facing downrange.
What part of town are you in?
Poway area.
Poway, they require you to take a class. They'll let you if you take one of their classes.
Okay.
Yeah, they do. So that can be true. Some ranges will allow you, if you, for example, take a class. I do work at Discount Gun Mart. As part of Discount, you can take a class or a private lesson and get signed off, or you can just be simply, if you are already skilled, you can be observed, for example, by an instructor, and I can sign you off without having taken an official course. It depends on the options. So it depends. I know that San Diego Gun Range also allows you to holster draw.
Yeah, at
San Diego.
the Gun Range San Diego,
Yes.
at least in the past, if it's a new RSO that doesn't know me,
Mm-hmm.
I will tell them that I'm going to practice drawing from the holster.
And they'll just watch you.
And they check you out first.
Right.
And they say, okay, you're good to go.
Yeah.
After
they'll
you
vet you.
demonstrate. But always inform them that that's
Yeah.
what you want to do.
I will tell you that it depends, but there often can be an avenue to get it, but you got to inquire. I will tell you, South Bay Rod and Gun will not allow you, which is an outdoor range, will not allow you to holster draw. Lemon Grove will, if you head out to Lemon Grove Rod and Gun. So there's options. You just got to find them. Yes.
As well, like North County Shooting Range in San Marcos will also, if you sign up with a private instructor, you will be instructed and taught, coached how to with the holster.
Okay, yeah, so the similar concept. And the reason for that, again, is because the safety and the liability and the risk, holstering and reholstering are incredibly important. When you are reholstering, whether you are carrying appendix or a strong side, those tend to be the two more popular places, you essentially are going to be pointing that firearm at yourself as you're reholstering. Okay, and I'm sure you can imagine the risk to that. And actually, you know what, let's just talk about, let me just demonstrate for you the proper holster technique. Let's just go over that, because that's important. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and, does this one fit me? All right, so let's just go over holstering and reholstering. So imagine that this is on my pants. Okay. All right, so as far as the firearm goes, first of all, if you're going to be concealed carrying and you're getting ready for the day, I would like to encourage you to holster while it's not on your body. Okay, so you're going to take your firearm, trigger finger high off that trigger. You're going to take your holster and you're going to hold it in a way that you don't even have to point the muzzle at your own self or your hand or anything. You're just going to simply slip it. If your trigger finger comes off, fits right in there. Okay? Holstering. Now I take this whole unit. Now I've got complete trigger guard coverage, because if nothing presses that trigger, I don't have to worry about this anymore. All right? So now I'm going to go ahead and slip it onto my belt and my pants, my rig, however I'm going to be wearing it that day. There. Okay, so when I carry appendix, this is about where I put it for real, okay, but inside the clothing. All right, so when it's time to draw, if I needed to, first thing you have to do is to clear your clothing. Let's just go ahead and let's keep it as real as we can here. All right, so if I needed to draw, for example, from concealment, let me adjust this. It's a little bit loose now that I move my shirt. All right, so if I needed to draw from concealment, first thing I have to do is I have to clear my clothing. All right, so the first thing I have to do, for example, and there's a couple of different techniques, find what works for you. I find grabbing and pulling. So here, you can sweep. I tend to struggle to find the sweep. I personally find that the grab and pull is easier. And then I'm gonna go for my firearm. Not only do I go for my firearm, but I'm gonna stuff it. I'm gonna shove it down just a bit. If I don't stuff it, if I just simply go for it and pull it, I come up with something like this. If you know anything about grip, you know that's a problem, okay? So go ahead and reholster. Let's talk about reholstering since I need to at this point. What options? What I would like to encourage you to do is to go ahead and put a foot back. I'm gonna jut my hips out and I am going to point my firearm muzzle slightly away at an angle away from me, and I'm gonna see into the holster, trigger finger goes away. So if I reholster, for example, what I don't wanna do is to find my holster like this. Where am I pointed right now, right? So I jut the hips out so I can see clearly in that holster. As women, move whatever is in the way. Boobs, shirt, clothing, move what's in your way. Move it. Angle slightly away from you and see it into the holster, okay? So drawing, clear the clothing, go for the firearm. Not only go for it, but stuff it. The stuff forces your hand high into that tang so that we get a good seal up high in that tang. And that can be a little bit tricky if your holster is very deep in your clothing. That's where practice comes into play. Practice. Don't think that the moment that you need it, you're gonna magically find skills you've never learned before. Practice. Practice your draw with an unloaded firearm. You know, dummy guns are not cheap. You probably don't have a dummy gun, but you can work with your own firearm. Verify empty and clear. Magazine well, barrel empty and clear. Once you verify empty and clear, then you can work in your holster and practice all of these things, right? Hips out, see into the holster. Okay, make sense? All right. Anything else that you have been wondering about that I didn't cover maybe? Yes.
Kids can go to like shooting range.
Yes, they can.
How young?
So it depends on the range that you're going to. I will tell you there's not an official age. OSHA recommends no younger than 8, just because of lead exposure and brain development. However, some ranges will have their own unique rules.
Oh.
I can't speak to all of them. I know I do work at Discount. I know what Discount is. Discount does not have an official age. As long as the child is safe and not rambunctious and not being a problem or a distraction or you know, a concern in any way, they're allowed to be there and they can shoot. So there is no official age, but some other ranges do have an official age. And as far as what that is, you would have to reach out to whatever range you're interested in going to. But I will tell you, there's not an official state requirement or rule or anything like that. No, there's not.
Okay.
No, as long as you as an adult are with them. Okay. Now, if they were 16 and able to drive and they want to go to the range by themselves, they will not be able to. Okay. So yes. So yeah, with you as a parent or they're with them, yes, they can, depending on the range rules, as long as they are safe, and that's important. And by the way, if you are, I see your hand, if you are interested in having your children work with an instructor, by the way, and I'm going to put this out there because there's a law. We have a law in place that California's put in place. It's actually kind of on its way out, but it is a law that does not allow us as instructors to have kid-friendly things marketed or advertised. Okay, so if you grew up shooting junior rifle club and you want to have your kids involved in that same thing and you do a Google search for it, you probably won't find a whole lot. If you do, you find an instructor who's actually out of compliance that's offering it, because junior rifle club is marketing to kids. Okay, so you mentioned kids. So the way that this works is you might find some instructors that are, you know what, this is a foolish law, forget it, I'm going to market it, I'm going to teach kids. We're allowed to teach them, we just can't market it. Okay, so in which case you generally have to proactively reach out to an instructor that you like and say, hey, you know, will you work with kids? Some instructors will work with kids, some will not. Okay, so it just depends. But you often have to proactively reach out to them only because we're not allowed to market and advertise for kids. We can teach it, we just can't advertise it. So, Mark?
I know if you get USCCA with your membership, they give you one of those rubber
the dummy guns? Yeah.
Yeah, they give you a dummy gun.
Yeah.
I'm not affiliated with USCCA.
Yeah. Yeah, they do. If you're interested in getting USCCA insurance, and they have reps downstairs. Yes, if you're interested, they do give you a yellow dummy gun. It's big. It's a Glock 17, which is a bigger firearm, but it's really great if you want to do training practice with kids, or you want to kind of just do it. It won't fit in your holster if you've got a small concealed carry holster. but it's a great opportunity to use it in lots of different ways for practice too. So yeah. Yes.
Do you find with that band that you put on, even with you when you're pulling out your gun, it stays put? It doesn't tend to ride up?
It doesn't ride up.
Okay.
Yeah, that's the thing, and that's the key. That's why I tightened it after I lit, because even just a little bit of taking my shirt out, it actually did loosen up a little bit, and that's why I tightened it. So when you have it snug enough, it's not gonna move enough to work. I mean, yes, it moves a tiny bit, but it's not enough to be problematic. Yeah, it's not gonna be like, it's not gonna flip or anything like that. It shifts just because it shifts a tiny bit. Obviously, you see that, but it's not enough to be a problem, and that holster is not going to come off with the gun, and that's going to be the critical part. It holds well enough to where I feel stable with it.
What brand is that one?
It's called Comfort Concealment. Is the name? There's a brand on it. Yeah, and so it is a brand. But yeah, it's an option. Again, I'm all about options, and I want you to be safe with your choices and pick the option that suits your needs best. You know, think about it. Do you wear a lot of dresses, right? If you wear a lot of dresses, maybe you want to consider, for example, a thigh holster, okay? I don't use one. I kind of have bigger thighs. For me, it's not comfortable. I have tried them, okay? So in that case, it wasn't a good fit for me, okay? So as far as, as far as your options go, pick what suits your lifestyle. What are the activities that you do? What are the types of clothing that you tend to wear? Pick things that are suited for you, and what works for you may not work for me. So again, that's where a lot of that, I would like to encourage you to try it before you make your own decision on stuff. That make sense? All right. All right.
Questions? All right, thank you so much, Alicia.
Thank you. And thank you. Thank you. Thank you guys. And I do have, thank you. I do have business cards over here. So like I said, and you did have my info up there as well. If you have any questions, you think of something later, like I said, maybe you see a product downstairs and you're like, hey, what do you think of this? Reach out to me, call, text, or email. Happy to help, happy to answer. Cool. All right. Thank you.
All
And
right,
if you want to come up and see anything, it's here.